The morning sun cast long shadows across the military training compound as Sarah Martinez stepped off the bus with 49 other recruits. At 22 years old, she carried herself with a quiet confidence that masked years of struggle and determination. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation ponytail, and her brown eyes held a steely resolve that few people had ever bothered to notice. Sarah had grown up in a small town in Texas where opportunities for young women were limited. Her father worked double shifts at the local factory, while her mother cleaned houses for wealthy families on the other side of town. Money was always tight, and dreams seemed like luxuries the Martinez family couldn't afford. But Sarah was different. She had always been different. From the time she could walk, Sarah displayed an unusual combination of physical coordination and mental toughness. While other children played with dolls or video games, she spent hours practicing martial arts moves she learned from old kung fu movies on their grainy television set. Her younger brother Miguel would often find her in their backyard at dawn, moving through self-taught forms with the precision of someone far beyond her years. The decision to join the military hadn't been easy. Sarah's parents worried about their daughter entering what they saw as a man's world. Her mother, Rosa, had cried when Sarah announced her intentions over dinner one evening. "Mija, why do you want to do this? There are other ways to get an education, other ways to make something of yourself." But Sarah had already made up her mind. The military offered structure, purpose, and, most importantly, a chance to prove that she was capable of anything she set her mind to accomplish. She had spent months preparing physically and mentally, running miles before dawn, doing push-ups until her arms burned, and studying everything she could find about military protocol and expectations. The recruitment process had been rigorous. Sarah excelled in the physical fitness tests, scoring in the top percentile for both male and female candidates. Her aptitude tests revealed exceptional spatial reasoning and problem-solving abilities. The recruiting sergeant, a weathered man named Thompson, had been impressed but also cautious. "Listen, Martinez," he had told her during their final meeting. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. Basic training is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. The drill instructors don't care if you're male or female. They're going to push every recruit to their absolute breaking point and then push harder. Some people think female recruits get special treatment. That's not true. If anything, you might face additional challenges." Sarah had nodded solemnly. She understood the implications, but her determination never wavered. She had been preparing for challenges her entire life. Now, standing in the sweltering heat of the training facility, Sarah surveyed her fellow recruits. They came from all walks of life: farm boys from the Midwest, city kids from urban centers, college graduates seeking direction, and high school dropouts looking for a second chance. What united them all was a mixture of nervousness and anticipation that hung thick in the air like humidity. The compound itself was imposing. Rows of identical barracks stretched across perfectly manicured grounds. Every building was painted the same shade of military beige, and every lawn was cut to exactly the same height. Signs with motivational slogans and military regulations were posted at regular intervals. The entire environment communicated one clear message: conformity and discipline were not optional. Sarah's attention was drawn to a group of male recruits who had clustered together near the front of the formation. They were talking in low voices, occasionally glancing toward the handful of female recruits with expressions that ranged from curious to skeptical. One of them, a tall blond kid who looked like he had never missed a meal, made a comment that caused the others to laugh. Sarah couldn't hear what was said, but the tone was familiar. She had heard that particular brand of dismissive humor throughout her life. The heat was becoming oppressive, and sweat had already begun to form on Sarah's forehead despite the early hour. She could see other recruits shifting uncomfortably, some already showing signs of the stress that would only intensify in the coming weeks. A few looked like they were reconsidering their life choices. Suddenly, the relative calm was shattered by the sound of heavy boots marching in perfect synchronization. 3 figures emerged from the main administrative building, their uniforms crisp and their bearing unmistakably authoritative. These were the drill instructors who would transform this collection of civilians into soldiers. The lead figure was a woman in her mid-30s with sergeant's stripes and an expression that could freeze water. Her name tape read Williams, and every aspect of her appearance communicated competence and no-nonsense professionalism. Behind her walked two men, both with the lean, hard look of career military personnel. But it was the fourth figure who commanded everyone's attention. Drill Sergeant Marcus Stone emerged last, and his presence seemed to change the very atmosphere of the compound. Standing 6 feet 4 inches tall with shoulders that strained against his uniform, Stone had the kind of physical presence that made people instinctively step backward. His face was all hard angles and weathered skin, with pale blue eyes that seemed to catalog every weakness and vulnerability in everyone they fell upon. Stone had been a drill instructor for 12 years, and his reputation preceded him. He was known for his ability to break down the most confident recruits and rebuild them according to military standards. His methods were intense, uncompromising, and entirely legal within the bounds of military training protocols. More importantly, his methods worked. Recruits who survived Stone's training program consistently performed at the highest levels throughout their military careers. As Stone approached the formation, his eyes swept across the assembled recruits with the efficiency of a predator assessing potential prey. Sarah felt his gaze pause on her for just a moment longer than the others, but she maintained her composure and kept her eyes forward. "Listen up, recruits." Stone's voice carried across the compound with the force of thunder. "For the next 16 weeks, your previous life is over. You are no longer students, employees, sons, daughters, or anything else you used to be. You are my recruits, and you will learn to function as soldiers or you will fail and go home." He began walking along the line of recruits, his voice never losing its commanding intensity. "Some of you think you know what hard work looks like. Some of you think you're tough because you played high school football or worked construction or survived some personal tragedy. Let me be clear about something, you don't know anything about toughness yet." Stone stopped directly in front of the blonde recruit who had been making comments earlier. "What's your name, recruit?" "Johnson, sir." "Bobby Johnson." "Johnson, drop and give me 20 push-ups. Now." Bobby immediately dropped to the ground and began doing push-ups, his form already showing signs of strain by the 5th repetition. Stone watched impassively, then addressed the formation again. "Physical fitness is only one component of what we do here. Mental toughness, emotional resilience, and the ability to function under extreme stress are equally important. Over the next 16 weeks, you will be pushed beyond what you thought were your limits. Some of you will discover reserves of strength you never knew you possessed. Others will discover that they are not cut out for military service." As Bobby struggled through his push-ups, Stone's attention returned to Sarah. There was something about her stillness, her focused attention, that set her apart from the other recruits. While others fidgeted or showed signs of nervousness, she remained perfectly composed. "The military is not a social experiment," Stone continued. "We don't lower standards to accommodate anyone's feelings or political correctness. Every recruit, regardless of background, will meet the same requirements and perform to the same standards. Excellence is the only acceptable outcome." Bobby finished his push-ups and struggled to his feet, his face red and his breathing labored. Stone nodded curtly and continued his walk along the formation. "You will live together, train together, and learn to depend on each other. The person standing next to you might save your life someday, and you might save theirs. Trust is not given, it is earned through competence, reliability, and shared sacrifice." Stone's presentation continued for another 20 minutes, covering everything from daily schedules to disciplinary procedures. His voice never varied in intensity, and his presence never diminished. By the time he finished, every recruit understood that their comfortable civilian lives were officially over. "You have 30 minutes to collect your belongings and report to your assigned barracks," Stone announced. "Your real education begins immediately. Dismissed." The formation broke apart in controlled chaos as recruits hurried to gather their bags and find their assigned living quarters. Sarah moved with purposeful efficiency, her military preparation evident in how quickly she located her barracks and claimed a bunk. Her assigned roommate was a quiet girl from Iowa named Jennifer Walsh. Jennifer had grown up on a farm and possessed the kind of practical competence that comes from years of hard physical work. She was soft-spoken but clearly intelligent, and Sarah sensed that she would be a reliable ally in the challenges ahead. The barracks were spartanly furnished with metal bunk beds, small lockers, and nothing that could remotely be considered decorative or comfortable. The floors were polished to a mirror shine, and every surface was clean enough to eat from. This would be home for the next 4 months. As Sarah unpacked her few belongings, she could hear conversations from other recruits throughout the building. Some were already expressing doubts about their decision to enlist. Others were trying to project confidence they clearly didn't feel. A few, like the blonde kid Bobby, were making jokes to mask their nervousness. That evening, the recruits assembled for their first group meal in the military dining facility. The food was nutritious but unremarkable, served cafeteria style with military efficiency. Sarah found herself seated at a table with Jennifer and 4 male recruits, including Bobby Johnson. "So what made you decide to join up?" Bobby asked, directing his question to Sarah with what he probably thought was charm. Sarah finished chewing before responding. "Same reasons as everyone else, I imagine. Education, career opportunities, chance to serve my country." "Yeah, but, come on," Bobby persisted. "I mean, this is pretty intense stuff for a girl. No offense, but most women I know wouldn't last a week in a place like this." Jennifer looked up from her meal with a slight frown. "What makes you think women are any less capable than men?" Bobby shrugged. "I'm not being sexist or anything. I'm just saying this is physically demanding work. Men are naturally stronger, that's just biology." Sarah set down her fork and looked directly at Bobby. Her voice was calm but carried an edge that made the other recruits pay attention. "Strength comes in many forms. Physical strength is important, but so is mental toughness, emotional resilience, and the ability to think clearly under pressure. I've never met a challenge I couldn't handle, and I don't plan to start now." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Drill Sergeant Stone, who appeared at their table without warning. The recruits immediately straightened in their seats, their casual conversation ending abruptly. "How's the food, recruits?" Stone asked, though his tone suggested he wasn't particularly interested in their culinary opinions. "Fine, sir," several voices responded simultaneously. Stone's attention focused on Sarah. "Martinez, right?" "Yes, sir." "Tell me, Martinez, what makes you think you have what it takes to succeed in my training program?" Every recruit at the table held their breath. This felt like a test, though none of them understood what was being evaluated. Sarah met Stone's gaze directly. "I believe success comes from preparation, determination, and the willingness to learn from failure, sir. I've spent my entire life preparing for challenges, and I'm ready for whatever this program requires." Stone studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "We'll see, Martinez. We'll definitely see." He moved on to another table, leaving the recruits to finish their meal in relative silence. The brief interaction had demonstrated something important to everyone present. Drill Sergeant Stone was going to be watching them all very carefully, but Sarah Martinez had already drawn his particular attention. Later that evening, as the recruits prepared for their first night in the barracks, Sarah reflected on the day's events. She had made it through the initial orientation without any major difficulties, but she knew the real challenges hadn't begun yet. Tomorrow would bring their first full day of training, and she suspected that Drill Sergeant Stone had plans that would test every recruit's commitment and capability. As she lay in her bunk, listening to the nervous conversations and occasional snores of her fellow recruits, Sarah felt a familiar sense of calm determination settle over her. She had been preparing for this moment her entire life, often without realizing it. Every early morning run, every hour spent practicing martial arts forms in her backyard, every moment she had chosen discipline over comfort had been leading to this place. The lights went out at exactly 2100 hours, and the barracks fell into an uneasy quiet. Some recruits tossed and turned, still adjusting to their new surroundings. Others, exhausted by the stress and emotional intensity of the day, fell asleep immediately. Sarah remained awake for a while longer, her mind reviewing everything she had observed and learned. Drill Sergeant Stone was going to be the key figure in her success or failure. His reputation for demanding excellence from every recruit was legendary, and she suspected that he would push the female recruits even harder to prove they belonged in his program. She was ready for that challenge. In fact, she was looking forward to it. The next morning would begin before dawn, and Sarah knew that her real test was just beginning. But, as she finally drifted off to sleep, she carried with her the quiet confidence that had sustained her through every previous challenge in her life. Tomorrow, she would begin proving that she belonged here, no matter what anyone else thought about her capabilities. Outside the barracks windows, the training compound settled into its nighttime routine. Security lights cast long shadows across the perfectly maintained grounds, and the American flag fluttered gently in the evening breeze. For 50 recruits, this was the end of their first day as soldiers in training. For Sarah Martinez, it was the beginning of something she had been working toward her entire life. The alarm sounded at 0430 hours, shattering the early morning silence with its harsh electronic shriek. Sarah was already awake, having trained herself to wake naturally before any alarm throughout her preparation period. Around her, other recruits groaned and stumbled out of their bunks, still disoriented by the abrupt transition from civilian to military life. Within minutes, Drill Sergeant Stone's voice boomed through the barracks. "You have exactly 4 minutes to be dressed, bunks made to standard, and assembled outside for morning physical training. Move! Move! Move!" The next few minutes were chaos as 50 recruits attempted to simultaneously dress, make beds, and navigate around each other in the cramped quarters. Sarah had anticipated this scenario and moved with efficient precision, her bunk made to military standards and her uniform properly adjusted while others were still struggling with their bootlaces. Outside in the pre-dawn darkness, the recruits assembled in formation under the harsh glare of overhead lights. The air was cool and humid, carrying the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant aroma of breakfast being prepared in the dining facility. Stone appeared before them like a specter, his uniform immaculate despite the early hour. "Physical training is not punishment," Stone announced as he walked along the formation. "Physical training is the foundation upon which everything else is built. A weak body houses a weak mind, and weak minds get people killed in combat situations." He stopped in front of Bobby Johnson, who was still trying to catch his breath from the hurried morning preparation. "Johnson, you look like you're about to pass out, and we haven't even started yet. Is that correct?" "No, sir," Bobby replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "Drop and give me 50 push-ups. Everyone else, jumping jacks. Begin." The morning physical training session was brutal by civilian standards but carefully calibrated to challenge without causing injury. Stone led them through a series of calisthenics, running drills, and strength exercises that revealed the vast differences in physical conditioning among the recruits. Sarah found herself keeping pace with the strongest male recruits, her years of self-directed training evident in her form and endurance. She had always been naturally athletic, but, more importantly, she had developed the mental discipline necessary to push through physical discomfort and fatigue. During a particularly demanding series of mountain climbers, Stone appeared beside her. "Martinez, you seem to be handling this better than most of your peers." "Yes, sir," Sarah replied between breaths, maintaining her exercise rhythm. "Tell me, what kind of training did you do before arriving here?" "Running, calisthenics, martial arts practice, sir." "I've been preparing for 18 months. Stone nodded approvingly. "Preparation shows respect for the process. I can work with respect." As the physical training session continued, Sarah noticed that several recruits were already struggling significantly. A skinny kid from Nebraska named Peterson was falling behind on every exercise, his face pale and his movements increasingly unsteady. Jennifer Walsh was keeping up better than expected, her farm background providing a solid foundation of physical strength and endurance. The most concerning performance came from Bobby Johnson, who had started the morning with such bravado. Despite his size and apparent athletic background, he was clearly not in the kind of condition required for military training. His push-ups were sloppy, his running pace inconsistent, and his attitude was shifting from confidence to frustration. After an hour of continuous physical activity, Stone called the formation to attention. "Shower, dress, and report to the dining facility in 30 minutes.
Anyone who is late will repeat this entire session after breakfast.
The rush to the showers and subsequent preparation was another carefully orchestrated test of time management and stress response. Sarah moved through her routine with the same efficiency she had demonstrated earlier, while other recruits struggled with the time pressure and unfamiliar environment.
Breakfast was a more subdued affair than the previous evening's dinner.
The recruits were beginning to understand that every moment of their day would be structured and evaluated. Conversations were quieter, and the earlier bravado was being replaced by focused attention to following instructions precisely. After breakfast, the recruits were introduced to their first academic session. Military history, protocol, and basic tactical principles would occupy a significant portion of their training time. Stone had been joined by Staff Sergeant Williams and Sergeant Rodriguez, creating an instructional team with complementary expertise. Intelligence and the ability to learn quickly are just as important as physical fitness, Williams explained as she distributed training manuals. The modern military requires soldiers who can think critically, adapt to changing situations, and make sound decisions under pressure. The academic material was challenging but well organized. Sarah found herself genuinely interested in the strategic thinking and problem-solving aspects of military science. Her high school grades had been excellent despite her family's financial limitations, and she approached the coursework with the same determination she applied to physical training.
During the lunch break, Bobby Johnson approached Sarah's table with what appeared to be a peace offering.
"Hey, I wanted to apologize for what I said yesterday.
That was out of line." Sarah looked up from her meal. "Apology accepted."
"I mean, you're clearly in great shape.
Better shape than me, honestly." Bobby's admission seemed to cost him considerable effort.
"I guess I was just nervous about being here and said something stupid."
"Nervousness is understandable," Sarah replied. "We're all dealing with stress and uncertainty. The important thing is how we handle it."
Jennifer Walsh, who had been listening to the conversation, added her perspective. "My dad always said that respect is earned through actions, not words.
Everyone here is going to have to prove themselves the same way." Bobby nodded appreciatively. "Your dad sounds like a smart guy."
The afternoon brought their introduction to military equipment and basic weapons handling.
This was the moment Sarah had been both anticipating and slightly dreading.
She had never handled firearms before joining the military, and she knew this would be an area where her preparation had been incomplete. Sergeant Rodriguez led them to the weapons training facility, a large indoor space with multiple stations set up for instruction and practice.
The walls were covered with safety posters and diagrams illustrating proper handling techniques.
"Weapons are tools," Rodriguez began, his voice carrying the authority of extensive combat experience. "They are dangerous tools that demand respect and proper training. Every person who handles a weapon is responsible for safety, their own safety and the safety of everyone around them." The initial instruction focused on basic safety protocols and nomenclature.
Sarah absorbed every detail, taking mental notes on proper procedures and handling techniques.
She had read about firearms extensively during her preparation, but actual hands-on experience was entirely different.
When the recruits were finally allowed to handle unloaded training weapons, Sarah approached the task with characteristic focus and precision.
Her movements were deliberate and controlled, and she followed every safety protocol exactly as demonstrated. Stone, who had been observing the training from across the room, made his way to Sarah's station.
He watched silently as she performed the weapon inspection procedures that Rodriguez had demonstrated. "Martinez, have you handled firearms before?" "No, sir, this is my first experience with weapons." Stone nodded.
"Your form is excellent for someone with no prior experience.
You're following the safety protocols precisely." "Thank you, sir. I want to make sure I understand everything correctly before moving to the next step."
That attitude will serve you well in advanced training. The weapons training continued for the remainder of the afternoon, with each recruit practicing basic handling, cleaning, and safety procedures. Sarah's natural coordination and attention to detail served her well, and, by the end of the session, she felt confident in her ability to handle the equipment safely and effectively. That evening, the recruits were introduced to another crucial aspect of military life: inspection procedures. Their personal areas, uniforms, and equipment would be subject to regular inspection, and the standards were exacting. Stone walked through the barracks with the slow deliberation of someone cataloging every minor imperfection. In combat situations, attention to detail can mean the difference between life and death. A weapon that isn't properly maintained might fail when you need it most. Equipment that isn't properly secured might be lost when you can't afford to lose it. He stopped at Bobby Johnson's bunk, examining the way his uniform was arranged in his locker. "Johnson, your uniform arrangement is unacceptable. Everything must be aligned precisely, with proper spacing between items." Bobby scrambled to correct the arrangement while Stone continued his inspection. When the drill sergeant reached Sarah's area, he spent several minutes examining every detail of her setup. Her bunk was perfectly made, her locker was organized with military precision, and her equipment was clean and properly arranged. "This is the standard, recruits," Stone announced, gesturing toward Sarah's area. "Martinez understands that excellence in small things builds excellence in large things." The praise was gratifying, but Sarah also understood that it marked her as someone Stone would be watching particularly closely. High standards brought high expectations, and she would need to maintain this level of performance consistently. After the inspection, the recruits were given their first opportunity for personal time: 30 minutes to write letters, make phone calls, or simply rest. Most chose to call family members, sharing their initial impressions of military life with loved ones back home. Sarah used the time to write a letter to her parents, knowing that her mother would appreciate the personal touch of handwritten correspondence. She described the training in general terms, focusing on positive aspects while being honest about the challenges. "The training is demanding but fair," she wrote. "The drill instructors are tough but professional, and I can already see how the experience is making me stronger and more disciplined. I miss you both, but I know this was the right decision." As she sealed the letter, Sarah reflected on how much her life had changed in just 2 days. The structured environment, constant challenges, and high expectations were exactly what she had hoped to find in military service. More importantly, she was beginning to see how she fit into this world. During the evening's final formation, Stone addressed the entire group about their progress and expectations moving forward. "Some of you have exceeded my initial expectations. Others have fallen short. Tomorrow, the training becomes more intensive. Physical demands will increase, academic requirements will expand, and your ability to function as a team will be tested." His gaze swept across the formation, pausing on various recruits as he continued. "Military service is not for everyone. There is no shame in recognizing that this life is not suited to your temperament or abilities. However, once you commit to completing this training, I expect total dedication to excellence." That night, as Sarah lay in her bunk reviewing the day's lessons and challenges, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The training was everything she had hoped it would be: demanding, purposeful, and transformative. She was learning new skills, testing her limits, and discovering capabilities she hadn't known she possessed. Around her, other recruits were processing their own experiences. Some whispered conversations revealed doubts and concerns, while others expressed determination to prove themselves worthy of the training. Jennifer Walsh seemed to be adapting well, her practical nature serving her well in the structured military environment. Bobby Johnson, on the other hand, was clearly struggling with the gap between his expectations and reality. Sarah could hear him tossing and turning in his bunk, and she suspected he was reconsidering his commitment to the program. The following morning brought a new set of challenges, including their first introduction to tactical field exercises. Stone led them to a training area that simulated various combat environments, complete with obstacles, cover positions, and communication equipment. "Combat is not a solo activity," Stone explained as the recruits assembled around him. "Success depends on teamwork, communication, and the ability to execute complex plans under stress. Individual excellence must be combined with collective effectiveness." The morning's exercise involved moving through a simulated battlefield while maintaining communication and achieving specific objectives. The recruits were divided into small teams, and Sarah found herself grouped with Jennifer, Bobby, and 2 other male recruits. As team leader, Sarah immediately began assessing her team members' strengths and capabilities. Jennifer was steady and reliable, good at following instructions and maintaining focus under pressure. Bobby was physically capable but seemed to struggle with confidence and decision-making. The other 2 recruits were competent but unremarkable. The exercise began with a briefing on objectives and safety procedures, followed by equipment distribution and final preparation. Sarah made sure her team understood their role in the larger operation and established clear communication protocols. When the exercise commenced, Sarah's team moved through their assigned sector with careful coordination. She positioned herself where she could observe both the terrain ahead and her team members' performance, providing guidance and encouragement as needed. The simulation included various stressful elements designed to test the recruits' ability to maintain focus and follow procedures under pressure. Simulated enemy fire, time constraints, and equipment malfunctions all combined to create a challenging environment that revealed each person's true capabilities. Sarah found herself naturally assuming leadership responsibilities, not because she sought authority but because she could see what needed to be done and was willing to take responsibility for results. Her team performed well, achieving their objectives efficiently and safely. Stone observed the entire exercise from various vantage points, taking notes on individual and team performance. When the exercise concluded, he gathered all the recruits for an after-action review. Some teams exceeded expectations, Stone announced. Others revealed significant weaknesses that must be addressed. Team leaders who demonstrated initiative and sound judgment will be noted. Team members who failed to follow instructions or maintain discipline will receive additional training. As Stone reviewed each team's performance, Sarah's team received praise for their coordination and objective achievement. More significantly, Stone specifically commended Sarah's leadership during the exercise. Martinez demonstrated the kind of tactical thinking and team leadership that we want to see from all recruits. Her team's success was not accidental, it was the result of preparation, clear communication, and decisive action under pressure. The recognition felt good, but Sarah also understood that it came with increased expectations. Stone was clearly evaluating her potential for advanced leadership roles, and she would need to continue demonstrating the qualities he valued. That afternoon brought weapons training at a more advanced level, including actual firing exercises with live ammunition. This was the moment Sarah had been both anticipating and slightly dreading, as it would reveal whether her theoretical knowledge could translate into practical marksmanship skills. The firing range was located in a separate facility with extensive safety measures and sound dampening. Rodriguez led the instruction, with Stone observing from behind the firing line. Sarah approached her first live-fire exercise with the same methodical preparation she applied to every new challenge. She reviewed the safety procedures, checked her equipment multiple times, and focused on applying the fundamental techniques she had learned. When she finally squeezed the trigger for the first time, the recoil and noise were more intense than she had expected, but her preparation served her well. Her shots were accurate and consistent, demonstrating natural aptitude combined with careful attention to proper form. After several rounds of firing exercises, Stone approached her position. "Martinez, your marksmanship is impressive for someone with no prior experience." "Thank you, sir. I've been trying to apply everything Sergeant Rodriguez taught us about fundamentals. Application of instruction is important, but you're also demonstrating natural ability. With continued training, you could develop into an expert marksman." The firing range exercises continued for the remainder of the afternoon, with each recruit getting extensive practice with different weapons and shooting positions. Sarah's performance remained consistently strong, earning additional recognition from the instructional staff. As the training day concluded, Sarah reflected on how much she had learned and accomplished in just 3 days. The physical challenges were demanding but manageable, the academic material was interesting and relevant, and the tactical exercises were revealing capabilities she hadn't known she possessed. Most importantly, she was beginning to understand how all the different components of military training fit together to create competent, confident soldiers. Physical fitness provided the foundation for everything else, but mental toughness, technical skills, and leadership abilities were equally crucial.
That evening, during their brief personal time, Bobby Johnson approached Sarah again.
His earlier swagger had been replaced by something that looked like genuine respect.
"I wanted to thank you for how you handled our team exercise today," he said. "You kept us focused and made sure everyone understood what we were supposed to do. I learned a lot watching you work." Sarah appreciated his honesty. "We're all learning together.
The important thing is that we support each other and keep improving."
"Yeah, I'm starting to understand that.
This is a lot harder than I thought it would be, but also more interesting." As Sarah prepared for her fourth night in the barracks, she felt a growing sense of confidence and purpose. The training was challenging, but she was meeting every challenge successfully. More importantly, she was beginning to see how she could contribute to something larger than herself, a team, a unit, a mission that mattered. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she was ready for them. In fact, she was looking forward to them. The fourth week of training marked a significant escalation in both physical demands and psychological pressure. Stone had warned the recruits that the initial period had been designed to establish baselines and identify obvious weaknesses. Now, he explained, they would discover what they were truly made of. Sarah had adapted well to the military routine, her performance consistently ranking among the top recruits in physical fitness, marksmanship, and leadership exercises. However, she had also noticed that Stone's attention toward her had intensified in ways that went beyond simple recognition of competence. During morning physical training sessions, Stone would position himself near Sarah's location, offering commentary that seemed designed to test her mental resilience as much as acknowledge her abilities. His remarks were never inappropriate or unprofessional, but they carried an edge that made other recruits take notice. "Martinez, your form is technically correct, but I want to see more intensity," he would call out during push-up exercises, even when Sarah was clearly performing better than most of her peers. "Acceptable performance is not the standard here. Excellence is the standard." Sarah responded to these challenges exactly as she approached every other aspect of training, with focused determination and increased effort. If Stone wanted more intensity, she would provide it. If he wanted to see her limits tested, she was prepared for that examination. The other recruits had begun to notice the dynamic between Sarah and their primary drill instructor. Some viewed it as unfair attention that put additional pressure on one of their teammates. Others interpreted it as evidence that Stone recognized Sarah's potential and was pushing her toward higher levels of performance. Jennifer Walsh, who had become Sarah's closest friend in the unit, offered her perspective during one of their brief evening conversations. "I think Sergeant Stone sees something in you that he wants to develop. My dad used to say that the animals he spent the most time training were the ones with the greatest potential." "I hope you're right," Sarah replied. "Sometimes it feels like he's looking for reasons to criticize my performance, even when I'm doing everything correctly. Or maybe he's preparing you for something bigger than basic training." Jennifer's observation proved to be prophetic. The following week, Stone announced that several recruits would be selected for advanced leadership training opportunities based on their performance in upcoming field exercises. These opportunities would provide additional challenges but also accelerate career development for those who proved capable of handling increased responsibility. The field exercise that would determine these selections was the most complex training scenario the recruits had encountered. It involved a 3-day simulation in a remote training area, complete with simulated combat conditions, limited resources, and stress-inducing variables designed to reveal each person's true capabilities under pressure. Stone briefed the entire unit on the exercise objectives and evaluation criteria. "This exercise will test everything you have learned over the past month. Physical fitness, technical skills, leadership ability, and mental toughness will all be evaluated. Some of you will discover capabilities you didn't know you possessed. Others will discover that military service is not suited to their temperament." Sarah felt a familiar surge of anticipation as Stone described the exercise parameters. This was exactly the kind of comprehensive challenge she had been preparing for her entire life. Multiple skill sets, high pressure, and meaningful consequences. It was an opportunity to prove that all her preparation and dedication had been worthwhile. The recruits were divided into squads of 8 members each, with squad leaders appointed based on previous performance evaluations. Sarah was surprised but gratified to be selected as leader of Squad 2, which included Jennifer Walsh, Bobby Johnson, and 5 other recruits whose capabilities she had observed during previous training exercises. As squad leader, Sarah would be responsible for tactical planning, resource allocation, team coordination, and mission accomplishment under simulated combat conditions. The exercise would include both individual and collective performance metrics, with particular emphasis on leadership effectiveness under stress. Stone approached Sarah after the squad assignments were announced. "Martinez, you've been assigned significant responsibility for this exercise. Squad leadership in field conditions is considerably different from classroom discussions or brief tactical exercises." "I understand, sir. I'm prepared for the challenge." "Are you?" Leading a squad means being responsible for other people's safety and success, not just your own performance. It means making decisions with incomplete information and accepting responsibility for the consequences. Sarah met his gaze directly. "I've been preparing for leadership responsibility my entire life, sir. I understand the weight of it, and I'm ready." Stone studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "We'll see, Martinez. We'll definitely see." The 3-day field exercise began at 0400 hours with the squads being transported to a remote training area that simulated various combat environments. Dense forest, open terrain, urban settings, and obstacle-rich areas provided diverse challenges that would test different aspects of military skills and teamwork. Sarah's squad was assigned an initial objective that required them to move through difficult terrain while maintaining communications and avoiding simulated enemy patrols. The exercise incorporated live role players acting as enemy forces, adding realism and unpredictability to the training scenario. From the beginning, Sarah demonstrated the tactical thinking and leadership skills that had impressed her instructors. She conducted thorough planning sessions with her squad, assigned roles based on individual strengths, and established communication protocols that would maintain coordination under stress. During the first day's operations, her squad successfully completed 2 of their 3 assigned objectives while avoiding detection by enemy forces. Her leadership style was collaborative but decisive, seeking input from team members while maintaining clear authority and responsibility for final decisions. Stone and other evaluators observed the exercise from concealed positions, taking detailed notes on individual and squad performance. Sarah was aware of being evaluated but focused entirely on mission accomplishment and team effectiveness. The second day brought more complex challenges, including simulated casualty scenarios that tested the squad's ability to maintain mission focus while caring for injured team members. Sarah's squad encountered one of these scenarios during a movement exercise when Bobby Johnson simulated a serious leg injury that prevented him from walking. Sarah immediately implemented casualty evacuation procedures while maintaining operational security and mission continuity. She assigned 2 squad members to assist Bobby while repositioning the remaining team members to provide security and continue toward their objective. The scenario required balancing competing priorities, caring for the simulated casualty, maintaining mission progress, and avoiding detection by enemy forces. Sarah's solution demonstrated both tactical competence and leadership maturity that impressed the evaluating instructors. Martinez handled that casualty scenario exactly right. She overheard Rodriguez commenting to another evaluator. She maintained mission focus while ensuring proper casualty care, and her team stayed coordinated throughout the entire evolution. That evening, during a brief planning session with her squad, Sarah noticed that her team members' confidence and cohesion had increased significantly. The successful handling of challenging scenarios had built trust and demonstrated that their preparation and training were paying off. Jennifer Walsh, who had been assigned as assistant squad leader, offered her assessment of their progress. "I think we're working really well together. Everyone understands their role, and we're communicating effectively under pressure." Bobby Johnson, who had struggled during the early weeks of training, added his perspective. "I never thought I'd be able to handle this kind of stress, but having good leadership makes all the difference." "Sarah, you make it look easy, but I know it's not." "It's not easy for any of us," Sarah replied. "But we're prepared, we trust each other, and we're focused on accomplishing the mission."
That's all we can control.
The third and final day of the exercise would determine which recruits would be selected for advanced training opportunities. The scenarios were designed to be the most challenging yet, incorporating all the skills and knowledge the recruits had developed over the previous month. Sarah's squad was assigned an objective that required them to infiltrate a simulated enemy position, gather intelligence, and extract without being detected. The exercise included multiple layers of security, time constraints, and equipment limitations that would test every aspect of their training. Stone appeared at Sarah's position during the final planning phase. This is your opportunity to demonstrate leadership under maximum pressure, Martinez. The scenario includes variables that will test your ability to adapt plans when circumstances change.
Understood, sir. My squad is prepared for whatever challenges are included in the exercise. Are they? Or are you prepared to handle whatever challenges your squad can't meet?
The question carried implications that went beyond the immediate exercise. Sarah understood that Stone was asking about her willingness to accept responsibility for outcomes that might be beyond her direct control. A leader is responsible for everything their unit does or fails to do, sir.
I accept that responsibility completely. Stone nodded approvingly. That's the right answer, Martinez. Now let's see if you can back it up with performance. The final exercise began with Sarah's squad moving through dense forest toward their objective.
The terrain was difficult, visibility was limited, and they knew that enemy forces were positioned between their starting point and their target. Sarah had developed a plan that emphasized stealth, patience, and careful coordination. Her squad would move in small groups, maintaining visual contact while avoiding patterns that might be detected by enemy observers. The plan required precise timing and flawless execution, but it offered the best chance of mission success. As they moved through the exercise area, Sarah found herself drawing on every skill and instinct she had developed throughout her life. Her martial arts background helped her move silently through difficult terrain. Her strategic thinking abilities allowed her to anticipate potential problems and develop contingency plans. Most importantly, her natural leadership instincts enabled her to keep her squad coordinated and focused under increasing pressure. The infiltration phase went perfectly, with her squad reaching their objective without detection. However, the intelligence gathering phase revealed that the scenario had been modified to include additional complications that weren't part of the original briefing. Instead of the expected static target, Sarah discovered that their objective involved a dynamic situation with multiple moving parts and time-sensitive requirements. The mission parameters had changed, and she would need to adapt her plans immediately while maintaining team coordination and mission focus. This was the moment Stone had been preparing her for, the test of leadership under conditions that couldn't be anticipated or planned for in advance. Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline as she realized that everything she had learned and practiced was about to be put to the ultimate test. She quickly gathered her squad and explained the changed situation. The mission parameters have been modified, but our fundamental objective remains the same. We need to adapt our plan while maintaining operational security and team safety. Her squad members looked to her for guidance, their confidence in her leadership evident in their attentive focus and willingness to follow her instructions. Sarah felt the weight of their trust and the responsibility that came with it. Within minutes, she had developed a modified plan that addressed the new requirements while maintaining the stealth and coordination that had brought them this far. The plan required her squad members to take on roles they hadn't specifically trained for, but Sarah was confident in their ability to adapt and perform. As they began executing the revised plan, Sarah became aware that Stone was observing their performance from a concealed position nearby. This wasn't just an exercise evaluation, it was a direct assessment of her ability to handle the kind of leadership challenges that would define her military career. The modified mission required her squad to coordinate with another unit while maintaining their original stealth requirements. Sarah had to communicate with external forces, manage her own team's movements, and ensure that all activities remained undetected by enemy forces. The complexity was exactly what she had been hoping for throughout her training. Multiple variables, high stakes, and the need for split-second decision-making under pressure. This was why she had joined the military and why she had prepared so intensively for this opportunity. Her squad executed the revised plan flawlessly, completing all mission requirements while maintaining operational security throughout the exercise. When the final evaluation signal was given, Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction and accomplishment.
Stone approached her position immediately after the exercise concluded.
Martinez, that was exceptional leadership under extremely challenging conditions. You adapted to changing requirements while maintaining team coordination and mission focus.
Thank you, sir. My squad performed exceptionally well under pressure.
Your squad performed well because you provided the leadership they needed to succeed. That's what leadership is about, enabling others to perform at their highest level.
The exercise debriefing revealed that Sarah's squad had achieved the highest overall performance rating of any unit in the training cycle.
More significantly, Sarah had demonstrated the kind of leadership potential that qualified her for immediate advancement to specialized training programs. That evening, Stone requested a private meeting with Sarah to discuss her performance evaluation and future opportunities. Martinez, your performance throughout this training cycle has been exceptional. You've demonstrated the technical skills, physical fitness, mental toughness, and leadership ability that we look for in our most promising recruits.
Thank you, sir. This training has been everything I hoped it would be and more.
I'm recommending you for several advanced training opportunities that will accelerate your career development.
However, I want you to understand what accepting these opportunities will mean. Stone explained that advanced training would involve even greater challenges, higher expectations, and increased responsibility.
The programs were designed for recruits who had demonstrated exceptional potential, but they also had higher failure rates and more demanding requirements.
I'm ready for whatever challenges come next, sir.
This is why I joined the military, to test my limits and develop my capabilities to their fullest extent.
Stone smiled for the first time Sarah could remember. That's exactly what I wanted to hear, Martinez. Your real training is just beginning.
As Sarah returned to the barracks that evening, she reflected on how much her life had changed over the past month. The scared young woman who had stepped off the bus 4 weeks earlier had been transformed into a confident, capable leader who was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The other recruits congratulated her on her performance, and many expressed gratitude for the leadership she had provided during the field exercises. Jennifer Walsh spoke for many of them when she said, "Sarah, you made all of us better soldiers. That's what real leadership looks like." Bobby Johnson, who had become one of her most reliable squad members, offered his own perspective. "I was wrong about a lot of things when I got here, but I was most wrong about thinking that women couldn't handle military training. You didn't just handle it, you excelled at it in ways that made the rest of us better too." That night, as Sarah prepared for sleep, she thought about the advanced training opportunities that awaited her. Stone had mentioned programs in tactical leadership, specialized operations, and instructor development, all paths that would challenge her in new ways while building on the foundation she had established during basic training. She was ready for those challenges. In fact, she was eager for them. The past month had proven to her that she belonged in this world and that she had capabilities she was only beginning to discover. Tomorrow would begin the next phase of her military education, and Sarah Martinez was ready to prove once again that there was no challenge she couldn't meet with preparation, determination, and the quiet confidence that had carried her this far.